I made this video in hopes of helping others that are trying to diagnose on the Detroit two-stroke, like the Series 53, 71, 92. There's a lot of folks out there having issues with oil coming out of the exhaust, oil in the air box, excessive oil draining from the air box. You go out there and start searching for this, and you see a lot of guys trying to fix it, but they don't really get a lot of good answers. The first thing's like, well, Detroit's, they don't like to idle, and you're not running it hard enough. Go slam your thumb in the door and come back. A lot of folks want to blame it on wet stacking, but if you've ever seen one of these, it's oil. It don't smell like fuel. And if anything wet stacked that much, you'd never be able to operate it. And the problem is these people repeat these common answers over and over, and before you know it, those answers jump to the top of the of all the searches. And yeah, these engines, they leak oil, and all diesels wet stack. But if you've ever seen this, it's you could start the engine and you'll have a pretty good sized puddle just by starting it and shutting it off. And even before the EPA regulations, they would have never, this would have never been an acceptable amount of oil. It's just excessive, and it leaks out every, when it gets real bad, it will leak out every exhaust leak you've got. And a lot of guys will even notice this at their exhaust manifolds. It'll be a small leak that you probably don't even hear or smell, but it gets so much oil in it that it seeps out of everything. And I'm not really going to get into how the Detroit two-stroke works. There's lots of videos out there that explain that, but a lot of people don't realize, well, how on earth does all this oil get out of the exhaust without being burnt? The first thing you got to realize is during the scavenging phase on a Detroit, it's sort of like any two-stroke. In order to get air in, you've got to have the exhaust valve open. So you got to have a flow of air. The blower provides the air because, in a Detroit two-stroke, the piston is not pulling the air in. The blower is providing fresh air, and it's also pushing air out the exhaust. During this phase right here, any kind of oil that's in the air box, it's going to be atomized, and it's going to be little drips and drops, but it'll eventually work its way out the exhaust. And yeah, during the power phase and the compression phase, that oil will probably get destroyed. So during the scavenging phase, you can tell anything that's in the air box is going to end up out the exhaust eventually. And I've seen ours leaked pretty bad, and we really didn't have a lot of blue smoke. There was some blue smoke, but it's amazing how much oil can be coming out of the exhaust, running out every leak and dripping out of the air box, and it still seems to be running really good. If you're in this situation and you do determine that it's oil, there's a lot of guys out there will tell you the possibilities, blower seals, the piston pin retainers, oil control rings. And what we ran into, if you have the crosshead pistons, this piston to skirt seal. This one doesn't appear too much because it seems like either, there's a lot of engines still out there with the old trunk style pistons, or they have been rebuilt and they have the newer seals in them. But I'm not sure of the exact date, but somewhere around 74, they went to the two-piece crosshead style piston, and that seal, it seems like they had some issues getting that straight from the beginning. I made a post on Detroit Enthusiasts on Facebook and got a lot of good responses. I'll try to show you those pictures here in a minute. So the first thing we went through was blower seals, and everybody's, the blower seals comes up as a top search result, and a lot of people will try to convince you it's your blower seals, and you can look in the sides and see somewhat if the seals are leaking. But you know, if you're in the boat we're in, there's so much oil in everything, it's really hard to tell, and you really can't get it cleaned up. So we ripped our blower off and cleaned it up, replaced the seals. It was in really, really good shape. This engine only has about 180,000 miles on it, so everything in it seems to be in really good shape. And you can see after that blower was cleaned up, the rotors were immaculate. What ended up being our problem was this little seal right here. And what you're looking at here is this is the two-piece crosshead piston. The top half is divided from the bottom half, and between the two is this seal. And every reference I've seen to it on the internet has the newer Vinton type steel. It's a new, rubber type seal, like an O-ring. It will fit in this same groove. Two out of our three pistons, this was really carboned up really bad, and most of them were really loose. There was like really no tension left on this. You could flex the two piston halves quite a bit and see that nothing was really sealing in there really well. Here's the post I made over on Detroit Diesel Enthusiasts, and I got some good responses over there, but you can see I've got the skirt and the head separated, and here's the seal. Those guys led me down the path of figuring out what was going on. Here's a shot that's going to appear in the next video. And this is probably the first thing I would do if you're in this situation. This right here, you can tell I wiped all of the oil off and started the engine, let it run a little bit, and you can see how much oil just after just a few seconds had run out. And you can see how much oil is on this piston. When you're looking at the inspection plate, you can really see the very top of the piston because it has to come all the way down during the exhaust stroke. But the farthest up it'll go, the oil rings are still going to be down here. So there really shouldn't be a whole lot of oil here. The oil control rings should really scrape off everything that's not, inside the hashings that's there to provide that oil for the top. But if you look right here, even while it's in the engine, you can see a considerable gap right here. This area right here is the area between the skirt and the top piston, the top half of the piston. This is the crosshead style pistons. And once you put this back together nice and tight and snug, this really won't be anywhere near this big. This was probably the worst leaking one, and like I said, at the time I shot this next video coming up, I didn't know if I had crosshead pistons. I was learning about this. I didn't know if it was trunk style, but going back and looking at the video now, you can clearly see the gap, and this might help you figure out what you've got. Here's a shot of the piston we're talking about. Here's the bottom skirt. Here is where the oil control rings go, and this top one's your fire ring, and the next two are your compression rings. When you look in the window, you can't see these down here. The scrapers for the oil control rings are down here, and so anything you see in the window shouldn't have a bunch of oil on it. Here's that same shot. I tried to put a little diagram in here to show you where the oil rings travel. They really only come up to about right here, and they will travel in this zone from right below the exhaust ports down. If oil's getting in this zone right here, then again, the most common causes are bad oil control rings, piston pin retainer, the little caps on the side, your blower, and in this case, the seal between the skirt and the top of the piston on this crosshead piston. Working on this 671 in Detroit, and truck actually doesn't have too many miles on it. You can the main problem we're working on right now is the oil in the air box. See a lot of guys troubleshooting that. It's gonna be hard to show in this video, but I've had all the inspection plates off. I've ran it, and you can see the oil in the air box now. I'll try to show what I can here and take a video of it running on this side, but bottom line is you can clean the air box out real well, and you can run it a little bit, and you'll see oil coming out of the exhaust ports and running down the side of the block there. All of the compression rings seem really good. There's not really even any carbon getting past the first compression ring. You know, there's carbon on top, but the first compression ring still seems to be sealed, and all of them I checked by pressing on them seem to be still springy, and you can see the wear groove. It's hard for me to get a video of it, but every cylinder I've looked at looks fairly smooth through the backside, and you can still see a lot of the cross hatching from the factory. So when I get it out, I'll get some better pictures, because we're going to tear it down. Well, that was a little more extreme than the last time I did it, but I did the cylinder next to it last time. It might not be as bad. But you can see oil comes out, rolls down, goes into the air box, and yeah, this has had an oil change. It does have straight 40 Delo in it. Not a lot of videos of them running, but you can see the piston's got a lot of oil on it. Should not be that much oil up past the oil rings. So we're going to disassemble it. So I guess the fastest way, in my opinion, to troubleshoot this is to open up your airbox, clean everything out really well, you know, get the sides as dry as you can, start it up, and you know, if it's coming in through the blower, it's going to build up probably in the bottom first, because you know, it's going to be in all the air. But you know, if you look at your blower and it's full of oil, don't assume it's your blower. A lot of people, I've seen a lot of posts that says, if your blower's covered in oil, but this one got so bad that it overflowed the lip. If you've ever seen the inside of the engine where this blower sets, there's a little lip right here for the drain, and plus it's all floating around in the air. It's like any two-stroke system. That whole air box becomes atomized with whatever's in there. So our blower seals, I'm pretty sure they were probably still serviceable. They were the original ones, but the seals were in good shape, and the wear, they didn't have a wear ring on it. It had the original shafts. The shafts didn't have any groove wear in them. But we did get in there and we replaced them, but I really feel confident that the oil just got so bad in the airbox that it ran over into the blower. If you look in the manual, I've got a 1984 version of the manual, and I have a 1996 version. In the 84 version, they talk about 3 different types of seal rings. There's a metal seal ring made of cast iron. Then they go on to mention the early steel ring, which is, I'm pretty sure, what we had, because it said very shiny appearance and must not be used for service. So there for a while they had the newer rubber style, and I think this is the same as Vinton. I don't know how they pronounce that. I'm pretty sure this is the same as Vinton. I'm pretty sure Vinton's what they have today. And they speak about in this era, you could mix the black oxide finished cast iron ones with the rubber seals, but not to reuse the shiny metals. Well, I think that's what we got stuck with.